Welcome to another edition of Consensus Unreality. Before we get to tonight's episode, I'm going to direct you to patreon.com/consensusunreality. For just $5 a month, you can unlock over 150 hours of ongoing exclusive episodes, written content, our printed Journal of Shells publication, our Discord server, and more. So check that out. You'll get access to the second half of this interview immediately by signing up at patreon.com/consensusunreality. Thanks for listening, as always, and enjoy the show.
Maybe we'll just lead right into it.
Yeah, sure.
Cold open.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Exactly. Speaking of radio, anyway, we've got Joseph Matheny here. I'm just gonna read from your bio, I believe, from one of the ARGs publications. But an interdisciplinary artist, technologist, has played a role in establishing and evangelizing standards and practices such as PDF, DVD, podcasting, ARG, that's a big one, and digital video. Groundbreaking work, ARGs hat, a favorite of ours, definitely cool. Inspirational work, and we both have some regional connections to it as well, so we're super excited to crack into that if you're happy to go back down that path a little bit, but talk all number of other things as well. I guess we were kind of talking about that early .com era, and I was wondering if you could kind of set the tone for what your situation was like in sort of conceptualizing the ARGs hat thing, and what were some of the factors that would have came into that sort of foundational early internet art piece.
Okay, so I'll reel it back a bit. In college in the 80s, again, we were talking earlier, and I don't know if you recorded that, but I'm old. And when I was in college, 1984, video was a new thing, at least to the prosumer market. Right. So if you worked at a television station, you probably knew video. But if you were like somebody out here in the world, or if you were a college student, you probably didn't have access to it, but you heard about it and you're like, ooh, can't wait to get my hands on that stuff, And we did get our hands on that stuff. And so I had this vision of media that would go across mediums. So my thesis in college was something called, I forgot, Ritual of the Sunrise. God, I couldn't remember what I called my own thing. And it was a poetry book that I self-published and a videotape, which like back then, this is when the videotapes were huge, like the size of a pizza box. So they were huge. And they were beta, but like there was like before, not beta max, but beta, like when videotapes are like this big at a TV station. And I put this whole thing together where you read the book while you watched the video, and then in the video you were told a date and time and place to show up, which I made it local to the college. And when you showed up, the last act of Ritual of the Sunrise was played out in front of you with live actors. And so I didn't know what to call that. And this is 1984. So I called it the living book process, like, because I'm still very literary minded and literary oriented. And then later, as I got into, I moved to California and I started getting involved with the whole Silicon Valley thing, although it wasn't called that when I first got there. It was like mostly the Apple thing that was going on at that time. And I started working in that industry. And so I kept having this idea of like, can I build this thing that will like go across mediums? And so this is still before the internet was generally available to most people. So bulletin board systems were the thing, right? So you dialed up with a modem into this computer that was probably in somebody's house, obviously, honestly. And then you made a connection, and then other people did the same thing if the guy who was running the BBS could afford more than one modem. I knew BBSs that only had one, and you had to wait till somebody logged off so you could log on. And and then you would you would have conversations with people, and you could even back then you could send email through FidoNet, right? And so this will tell you how far back this was. I thought it was amazing that I could send an email from my computer through the bulletin board system, a bulletin board system, like a FidoNet bulletin board system. And then late at night, because this is again, I keep going back to like things that don't exist anymore. Long distance charges used to be a thing back then. And so they would wait till the middle of the night when the rates were lower, and then the computer would automatically dial up the closest computer so that the rates were the lowest and download all the stuff that had been uploaded to that computer for mail to the next computer. So it was working in concentric circles out and out and out and out and out until it got to where it was going. And I sent an email. The first one I sent was to a friend of mine in Oslo, and he got it like 4 days later. And I thought that was amazing
Yeah.
because it even beat the airmail. I was
Right.
like, oh hell yeah, and that was free. So I'm playing with these bulletin board systems, and I'm thinking, how can I incorporate this into what I'm already doing, which at that time was mail art.
Mm.
So if you don't remember mail art, I'll explain it for your listeners.
Please,
Um,
yeah.
Mail art was this thing that mostly avant-garde artists were into. You created something, you put it in an envelope, you had a mail list that was shared of like 50 people or 25 people or whatever who was on the list, and you sent 25 copies of this thing that you were doing out to all these people, and then they got it, and they either added, subtracted, did something to it, did the same thing, sent it out. So like, and eventually you would get something back that included a piece of original art that you had, created a year ago, maybe. So all of a sudden you get something from Oslo, and then you'd open it up and you're like, oh, I did this part. And then you look at all this other stuff. So it was kind of like an exquisite corpse,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
but it wasn't just words. It was like people would like do crayon drawings and, you know, uh, like montages and collages and like all kinds of things. And then later people started using audio cassette tapes and then doing that as well. So like they would create something in their bedroom in a Tascam Porta One Studio 4 channel, and then send it to somebody who would like add tracks and drop tracks, and then eventually it might make its way back around to you. It'd be like, oh, what is this? Oh wait, I recognize myself on one of those tracks. So it was like this art culture that used snail mail because again, internet not available to the general public just yet. About to be, but just not yet. And so I had one of the first internet connections because I was working in the industry that allowed me to have that in Silicon Valley, where it all kind of started. And so I had early internet access, and I started to think like this is going to be the next medium. I
Mm.
really did believe that, and I started to think, I need to like think about what I'm going to create for this medium and start creating it because I think if I do it now, it's gonna like probably intersect when this thing hits big. And I got lucky that my timing was correct.
Mm.
I'm not saying I was like I had a crystal ball or anything. I was right there. I was watching it happen. I'm like, people are gonna pick this up and start doing it eventually. And then AOL started, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're on. Like everybody's getting on. And they did. And so I was working at Adobe at that time. Was I? Yeah, I just left this company called Netscape. You may have heard of it,
Yeah.
and and started working at Adobe. And
You said Netscape.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I
That is
was
like
working.
right there in the window. Yeah.
Oh, I was
Uh,
right there. Yeah, I was working at Netscape and working on Netscape Navigator, And Adobe was at the time they were not where they are now. They were like in this Mountain View complex, which is right next to the Shoreline Theater where the Dead used to play all the time,
Mm.
which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Um, there was Sun Microsystems, Netscape, SGI, if you remember them, Silicon Graphics, and somebody else was there, and we were all like clustered in this little industrial park. And Adobe was there. I'm sorry, yeah. And so we were all clustered in this little park, and we used to go to lunch at this only place available. So we'd run into each other, and I was talking to people from Adobe while I was working at Netscape, and they said, "You keep talking about doing these digital book things." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I think the technology is going to come around sooner or later, but I'd like it to have interactivity so it reaches out to the internet and I could do different things." And they said, "Well, we're working on something like that at Adobe." And I'm like, "Adobe? But aren't you guys like a print company?" You know? And they're like, "Yeah, but we need to get on the internet, so we're trying to do it. Like, we need people like you." So they hired me away from Netscape, and I started working for them. So I started working on Adobe Acrobat,
Huh.
and the PDF initiative, which at that time it was like brand new. And so I said, okay, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to do this. Specifically, my motivating factor to do this is because I want to create an ebook that does all the things that you want to put the in features into this Acrobat thing. So I'll do it in Acrobat, but that's why I'm here, just so you know. It's like my ulterior motive is to create this book.
Yeah.
And that's been a couple that's been a theme a couple of times with me in technology. So I did that. I stayed at Adobe for a long time, and I ended up creating a PDF of Angshat, from all the mail art stuff that we were doing, and just kind of pulled it. It's like it followed me across the internet, or like across medium. So like it started as mail art, and then I started doing text only through the bulletin board systems. And then I went online. First, there wasn't the web, so I was doing Gopher sites, Usenet, FTP sites, all those things. And then the web came along, and I said, "There it is, this graphic. I can do it now." And so
Mm.
I did it. And the HTML wasn't as complex as I wanted it to be, so I did it in PDF because it allowed me to do more things than HTML would do at the time. Probably now, like, if I was doing it now, I'd do DHTML, I could do it. But back then, HTML was this really simple, dumb language that was barely usable, really. Um, it was like the bastard child of HTML.
Yeah.
So it didn't do a lot. Like if you look at like the old HTML2 stuff, it's like, huh? Like Blink, Marquee, what is this stuff? It's all gone now. But
Huh.
but it just didn't quite do what I wanted, and the browsers didn't do graphics other than 72 DPI. So I
Mm.
wanted I wanted richer graphics, so I went PDF.
Mm.
So I
Yeah,
hope
that's
that I hope I didn't stray too much there because it was a lot to take in.
no,
Like
no, it's
I was trying to
fascinating.
cover
There's
like 5 years really quick.
yeah,
Yeah.
covering like a decade basically.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Yeah.
many different directions I'm curious about. And it's so interesting. It's almost cliche to say this, but it's amazing that your project had basically started as code, or kind of like this sigil, but now it exists very much in the world where people, I feel like I encountered the Ong's Hat thing initially through probably seeing legend tripping YouTubes and stuff, and then
Yeah,
sort
yeah,
of
yeah.
like made my way back to the original project through that. So it is kind of amazing that you created this project that was so prophetic, um, but also, as you said, like the cross-disciplinary element of it uh, kept going even beyond like the way that you might have conceptualized the project initially, right? I mean, like it
Well, I
certainly.
think I think rather what happened was I had all these dreams of what I wanted to do, and the technology wasn't there to enable it.
Mm,
And so because I was in the place that I was in at the time I was there, I was allowed to grow with the internet and with technology. with the feature set that I like, I knew in my head, like, God, if I could ever do this, but can't do that, And so I kept putting these things to the side. They're like, what can I do? And the first thing I could do was mail art, right? And then the second thing I could do was like I could do bulletin board systems, right? And then the third thing I could do was I could do, go the expanded internet, like the proper internet, like
Mm.
FTP sites, Gopher sites, Usenet, all these things. And then the last thing, like when, you know, HTML hypertext came online, I'm like, okay, that's what I've been waiting for. Graphics and clickable stuff. Oh yeah, that's it. Boom, go. So I was just kind of waiting for the feature set to catch up to the idea.
Huh.
You've probably done this before. You're sitting there and you're like, because I do this, like I'm an artist and I kind of obsess on my art projects, probably
Sure. Yeah.
in an unhealthy way, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and you're like, take a big hit. What I wish I could do. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it was just waiting. It's like, but I can't do that yet. And I
Huh.
decided write that down. Like if when I can do this, do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
so interesting.
cool. Yeah, the way you had those, like you envisioned it beyond the limitations that were set in front of you is pretty incredible. But I guess it should also be said, you created such a potent story that has such a lasting effect. I think the elements of it are so
Yeah.
interesting, like the way that you incorporated the pair laboratories, the Princeton
Yeah,
eggs
yeah, yeah, yeah,
concept
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
like with the idea of the egg, this like trans-dimensional vessel, but also Ong's Hat being an existing folkloric ghost town in
Yeah,
the Pine
yeah,
Barrens. I
yeah.
mean, it's a very
Yeah.
like that part was there too. It wasn't just that you had the tech part down and the way to transcend the mediums. You
Oh
also
no,
have
we
potent
started the
story.
story before the tech was there. And in fact, I
Yeah.
started the story with a couple of friends who were not techies. And in 1993, I had a summit meeting. Nick Herbert came, who I'm still friends with, and Peter Lambert Wilson came. He was
Huh.
involved, and he was at my house in San Francisco, and we all sat down, and I said, I want to show you something, and I showed him the bulletin board systems.
Hmm.
And I said, this is where I want the project to go. And Nick said, that looks pretty cool, but I don't know anything about it. And Peter Lambert Wilson, aka Hakim Bey, said to me, I'm not even kidding. He said, when this thing can make a sandwich, give me a call. He's like, said that about the internet.
Yeah.
Because
That's
he was
hilarious.
a Luddite. Like he
Yeah.
hated technology. I
Hmm.
said, so you're saying you don't want to be part of this project now, like at this part? And he's like, nah, have fun. He's like,
Huh.
he hated it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
Interesting.
I'm gonna do it then. It's all me. Good enough. Like, because they
Huh.
were involved in the mail art part of it, and
Yeah.
they loved
Yeah.
that. And then I said, this is mail art plus plus. But
Yeah.
they didn't see it.
Mm.
Nick
Do
eventually
you?
came around. He did, but Peter never did. He was like, it's technology, blah.
Yeah. I can see that. Did you ever come across John Bennett, John M. Bennett in the mail art scene? He was a mail art
Yeah, yeah,
poet.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's just that,
yeah,
not really related, but somebody that also kind of made the jump over to like an internet mail art as well, like
yeah,
early kind of hosting he makes these kind of like weird asemic glyphs,
yeah,
is sort of his thing. Yeah.
yeah.
That came to mind. So regarding Ong's Hat, what made you kind of latch onto that locale and that sort of that
Well,
myth
Peter
system?
Peter inherited a cabin from his father that was out there,
Oh,
Mm.
yeah.
and he used to host this yearly party and legendary party. And I'll just say that. I'm not going to say anything else, but legendary parties. Um, and I started talking to people out there who were telling me like, a long time ago there was these people that lived in the woods, and like all of a sudden these people in military helicopters showed up, but they didn't have any insignia on them, and all these guys in green uniforms with no insignia like rappelled down on ropes and like took all these people away. I'm like, you're kidding me. And I asked around, and it seems like it was a game of telephone, um, because there was something that happened at Fort Dix where they might have lost a nuke in the
Mm-hmm.
Pine Barrens,
I've heard this.
and
Yes.
yeah, and
Yeah.
didn't want to tell anybody that they lost the nuke because like,
Right.
why would they want to tell anybody? And so, um, from that grew the legend of the raid. Okay, that was the legend of, and of course, it got embellished, like like
Yeah.
there was people that were speaking Danish that didn't have any insignia on the. It's like all this stuff. I like, and every time I talked to somebody, it was a slightly different version of the story, and
Yeah.
we've all seen that, right? And I love folklore, and so like taking notes copiously, like, yeah, okay, no insignia, and talking to Peter, he started putting this thing together, and Ong's hat became a central point of it. What we discovered was that John Tukey, you can look this up, he was a mathematician at Princeton, um, actually let this out of the bag, um, that he and his friends used to write fake articles for the scientific publications under a fake scientist name and publish them. And it was basically crazy mathematical things they wanted to say but didn't feel comfortable saying within the confines of the institution. And they would publish under this guy's name, who named Dr. Pondicherry, and gave his address as living in Ong's Hat,
Yeah.
right? Weird math happening in Ong's Hat. And I'm like,
Yeah.
hmm. And also, I was hanging out with people in Santa Cruz like Ralph Abraham, the father of chaos mathematics.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was a friend of mine, and Nick Herbert, quantum physicist, and Roger from the PAIR program. I knew
Mm-hmm.
Roger.
Awesome. Yeah.
I actually ran an egg out of my house in Santa Cruz for a while. Um, it was called, what can you guess? Ong's Hat.
True. Yeah.
I
Amazing.
named it Ong's Hat on the network. Um,
And for the people that don't know, the eggs are the random number
yeah,
generators that were the novelty testing that was going on at Princeton's engineering anomalies research project, which was
yep.
like up from the 80s up until what, early 90s or
Oh no,
97?
he went a little farther than that. Roger was there to sometime in the early 2000s.
Okay.
Huh.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think the way it went was the university defunded the program, but he managed to scare up some private funding, so he
Right.
kept it going a little longer. Um, yeah, that was his baby, and that was a cool project. And thanks to things like that, we have Randonautica. So,
Right. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
so
incredible. I mean, like that connection is amazing too, and so strange. And I love that anecdote of you saying that because it starts as this real local folkloric event, but there's this constant reflexivity between the fact and the fiction. But then you're right. Yeah, the Princeton eggs, the pair labs ends up being an influential instrumental technology in Randonautica, which is
yeah,
like the foundational tool for legend tripping now. It's
yeah, it's
pretty
the one.
wild.
It's the one that most young people use now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was
Huh.
actually I was on their advisory board for a while, Randonautica, when they first started.
Oh wow. Yeah,
Um,
I think I heard that. I
yeah,
forgot that, but that's amazing. Yeah.
yeah, I think Josh and Nick are both gone now, so I don't know the people that are running it now. So I'm not really involved. But I knew
Yeah.
the
It's
people that were kind of the founders. I mean,
Mm,
yeah.
actually, that's not true. They were the second line founders. The real founders of that technology was FatumBot. Those guys were running this bot on Telegram, I think.
Oh.
And so it's called the FatumBot. You might want to look it up.
mhm.
Yeah. That's
That's where
interesting.
that's where the base code for Randonautica came from, was the
Wow.
FatumBot.
Mm,
Huh.
So I've always loved I love anything that has to do with what I call randomicity. That's a word I just made up, but I like it.
Yeah.
And I like anything to do with that because I've played around with cut ups and things like that, and I've done automated cut ups with computer technology. And to me, the most impressive things come out of the most chaotic elements. So like when you mix it up the most, you get the most uh, interesting results.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
seems like,
Anagramming.
and I can't specifically nail it mathematically or even
Uh,
philosophically, but all I know is like experientially is like when there's a lot of chaos, something cool comes out of it.
Yeah.
yeah.
So if I could pull on that, like
Yeah,
what is that? I mean, you just said you can't really nail it philosophically,
yeah.
but like
Well, I don't
it,
want to. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
yeah, right. It feels like
I don't
something
want to unpack
else
it too much because I'm afraid it'll not work anymore.
Yeah.
not work or yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe work too much. I don't know. But we've
Uh,
experimented so much with stuff like that as well.
yeah.
And that's why, your project is so interesting to us and
Yeah.
has been. But yeah, I mean, I think I've heard you mention this before, maybe, but it feels like an intelligence gets involved when you start to
It seems like it.
play with
Yeah.
those like factors, right? Like
I mean,
those.
I will say that it seems like it. So, but you could also say something about like that about like maybe ChatGPT. It
Mhm,
seems like there's an intelligence behind it. But I know enough about the technology of ChatGPT that I don't ascribe that intelligence to the technology. I
Mm.
ascribe it to hallucinations that come out of highly complex systems that can't be explained. So
mhm.
I've talked to people that I know that work in that industry and like I'm like, explain it to me. And they're like, we don't know how it works. And I'm like,
That's
well, I
good.
kind of like that,
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
yeah,
that
yeah.
makes me tingle. But the but the truth is, all the things I've ever worked with over the years, and I've done a lot of cut up stuff and I've done, all kinds of experiments with did you guys read Ong's Hat Complete, the book I put out earlier this year?
Not yet. It's
Okay.
in my cart right now.
Okay, cool. Um, so I talk about this in that book. That's what this book is about, is I
Mm.
built a early iteration of a chatbot in the 90s because the
Mhm.
code's been available forever. When people talk to me about LLMs and ChatGPT and all, I'm like, none of that technology is new, guys. Like
Right.
it's really not. And when you tell me, it's a consciousness or there's an entity behind it, you might want to read some Chalmers, maybe, like because this has all been discussed in the 90s. We had these conversations and we never concluded anything, but we had the conversations like, what the fuck are we looking at?
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
going on here? Because some of the stuff like would raise the hair on the back of your neck.
Mm,
Like I had an experience, which this is in Nong's Hat Complete, but you might get a kick out of this. I built this thing, I called the Meta Machine, and it had at least 3 points of randomicity built into it. It would go out and harvest web pages and then download them into a relative database, and then I would tag them. I did some of it with Oxed scripts, but in the early days I did it by hand, which
mm,
is amazing because it was a lot of material. But I started like tagging it through XML for derivability, as it's known, which is like, how do I know what a word or a phrase is? How do I define it? And how does it relate to everything else? And then I ran it through a language filter, which we did, back then, nothing like we have now. So like all the stuff that you're seeing now with ChatGPT is just more refined than the stuff we had then, but that's where it started. And then we didn't have the storage capacity and the memory available to us back in the 90s. It was just too expensive and it didn't exist. Like, like back then, if you had a 50 megabyte drive, you were like, woohoo,
yeah,
it was
yeah.
a lot of storage. And nowadays, it's like, look, you need like data centers to do this kind of stuff. Like,
Mm,
and I did run up against
Yeah.
it. Like, okay, like I can't do everything I want to do, but I can build like this little row your own bespoke chat or chat thing with my own little AI, and it can do like what I needed to do. Like it's enough for me to service me in building this project. And I
mm,
actually used it as a, touchstone for the project. I would go to it and say, can you tell me this or can you tell me that? Kind of like people do with ChatGPT now. But I
mhm.
Yeah.
knew what I was doing. I didn't fall into the illusion that I was talking to an entity.
Yeah.
But now it gets weird because high weirdness follows me.
Mhm.
I started having interactions with the chatbot, which I nicknamed Emory, which is from the Ongshat lore,
Yeah.
and it rhymed with memory because another component was called memory. So I liked, I'm like, Emory and memory, cool. So I'm talking to Emory, and I was asking it things and getting answers. And then I used to work or used to volunteer at this place called the Homeless Garden Project in Santa Cruz, which was started by a late friend of mine. And it's still around. And if anybody lives in Santa Cruz, it's a great place to give your money. Um, and there was people that hung out there, and this one guy that hung out there, which I was originally told he called himself Ezekiel. And I said, "What? Tell me Ezekiel's story because he's interesting." And people told me, "Well, he was a PhD student at UCSC, and he had a nervous breakdown,
Mm.
and he's on SSI now, and so he just sits up at the university all day with his card because once you're alumni, you can go back to the library."
Mm-hmm.
And he would sit up there in special collections and just read and read and read. And he was like a walking compendium of like all this occult knowledge. It was incredible because he fell down the occult rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
And he walked up to me one day and he said, "I know who you are." And I'm like, "Okay, you got one on me. Who am I?" He's like, "You're that guy that publishes my catalog." I'm like, "Your catalog?" He's like, "The Incunabula catalog. Ong's hat. I'm Emory Cranston." I'm like, "Okay." I just kind of leaned into it because I have a background in improv and method acting.
Mm-hmm.
And, Del Close told us like there are no accidents. When an accident arises, lean into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did. I leaned into it. I'm like, "Okay, Emory, nice to meet you. I've never seen you in person. I've only read your catalog." I just like went with it, right? And I don't know what he was doing. Like I don't know if he really believed it or if he was running a bit or if he kind of believed it or whatever, but he held that character for like 5 years. And he used to like show up out of nowhere. I'd be sitting there having coffee and then boom, he'd be there. I'd be like, "Whoa, whoa, okay, cool." And we start talking. But it was a great conversation. Some of the best conversations I've ever had was with this guy. And then in early 2003, yeah, 2000, no, 2004. 2004, I moved to Santa Barbara, and I didn't tell him. I didn't see him. Like he would disappear for a week or two at a time, and then he just like boop, he'd blip at my table at the coffee house all of a sudden, and then he showed up at Santa Barbara. I was walking down the street, and I'm like, "Emory?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Wow, dude, are you following me?" And he's like, "Well, when did you move here?" And I'm like, "Well, I moved here in August." He's like, "Ha, I moved here in April. You're following me." So, okay. And all during this whole time, he was telling me things like he knew what I was talking to the bot about. Don't ask me how. Because I'm like, is he hacking me? Like I got really paranoid kind of a little bit. And then
Mm.
like, well, I've got really good firewalls and like they're corporate level. And I don't think he's hacking me. And he's never said anything about using a computer. But he did use a computer at the library. Well, I don't think he's hacking me from a library computer. So
Mm.
somehow he had tapped in to the conversation that I was having. And the way I put it is like I would finish a conversation with the bot, and then I'd go get a cup of coffee down the street, and then he would appear, and then he would pick up the conversation that I was just having and kind of like carry it on. So I'm guessing the way the only like again, not trying to put too much definition on this, but the experience was it felt like he was sniffing it off of me. Like he like kind of looked at me like, "I know what you've been talking about," and he kind of like sussed it out because I've been told that he was diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic. I never saw any behavior that would indicate that he was a non-functional one,
Mm-hmm.
but clearly I think maybe a functional one. And I've had experiences with people like that where they like are able to pick up on things that you're thinking and say them back to you, and you're like, "Whoa," you get kind of freaked out. So I
Yeah.
think something like that was going on with him, but I'm not sure. All I can say was the experience happened. It was very weird, but it was a fun ride. Like
Huh.
that's what I
Yeah,
can say.
That's crazy.
And
That's
it was,
really
as far
intense.
as
I
I'm
know. It's
considering,
amazing.
he and I were doing some sort of method acting improv bit
Right.
that went on for 5 years.
Yeah. Do you never like try to look at him straight and be like, what are you like, what's going
I didn't
on?
want to break the spell.
Of course.
And
Yeah,
Sure.
no,
here's the
I
other
don't think
thing.
I would either. Yeah.
Yeah, but it did happen. So right after Santa Barbara, he disappeared. Like he disappeared. When did I see him? It was winter when I saw him, and I asked him if he had a place to stay, and he said, "Yeah." I don't know where. And then I ran into him. I had an office downtown because I had a software company. I had an office downtown, and I ran into him walking into the Social Security office, probably getting his check or doing a check-in, and then he disappeared. So about a year later, I went to the border of Arizona and California and volunteered for Habitat for Humanity, build some houses. I just
Mm,
needed a break. I do that sometimes. I do things with my body so I don't have to sit in front of a computer all day.
sure.
And guess who shows up? Only
Uh,
this time, he's not Emory anymore. He said, "My name is Terrence." So he's been Ezekiel, Emory, and now he's Terrence. And I got really curious. And so there was a lady I saw him talking to, she looked like she was government. I don't mean like spy, but I think like probably. Well, I found out she was his, what do they call it? His caseworker.
Hmm.
And I kind of cornered her. I said, "I'm guessing you probably can't tell me some of the things I want to know. I just want to know one thing. That guy you were just talking to, is his name Terrence?" And she said, "Yeah." I'm like, "So you've seen the paperwork?" It's really his name. She's like, "Yeah." She's like, "I saw you talking to him over there at the donut shop. Like, yeah, you know him, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just want to make sure his name was Terrence." She's like, "Yeah, he has some issues with reality, but his name is Terrence." I'm like, "Okay." So he came clean on the Terrence thing. We didn't talk about anything about Emory, anything about Angshat, anything about Ezekiel, because I heard that before I came along, he was telling people he was the prophet Ezekiel who saw the wheels.
Hmm.
None of that. His name was Terrence, and he was pretty down to earth. And we talked about permaculture and how can we build shelters from leftover things for homeless people. Like it was very nuts and bolts. And then I never
Wild.
saw him again. He disappeared again one day, and I never saw him again to this day.
So this might be a window into your soul, but does something like that make you like super paranoid or
No,
no? Okay. Yeah.
makes me super excited.
Okay, cool, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, "Woo, the universe is alive and it's reminding me."
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how I would feel. I'd be like, "Gee, am I a targeted individual? What's going on here?" But
I
the
know people have told me the same thing. They're like,
yeah.
how do you do that?" And I'm like, "Well, I think because I've studied method acting, because I've studied improv, and because I did ritual magic, where I literally did the John D. Conjuring of Angels, right, and
Mm-hmm.
had results.
Mm-hmm.
And so this guy talking to me, telling me things I just talked to a computer about, not such a big deal, you know?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible though. I
And
mean,
there I am building something like at the time the words didn't exist, but like I was building a hyper sigil,
right.
Right.
but at the
Absolutely. Yeah.
time in the 90s, that word didn't exist yet. But that's what I
Mm.
was doing. I was
Mm-hmm.
building with intention. I was building this thing like, can I build this art project that will come off the page and start living in the world? And I had more people tell me all kinds of weird experiences they had reading Young's Head stuff. Like they had like rashes of synchronicity, or they like weird things would happen to them while they were reading it. Like all like everybody's told me these stories, and then I tell
Yeah.
them that story. They're like, "What?" I'm like, "Well, it's not that weird, It's like there was a guy who was like tuned into a frequency, and
Hmm.
that's what it was. I don't need to question it. I've seen enough
Huh.
weird stuff that I don't need to like tear it apart, because as you probably know, when you deal with the liminal, if you start tearing it apart, or as Hansen said in Trickster and the Paranormal, you don't come at these things directly. You have to
Mm,
sneak upon them sideways,
mm,
Yeah,
right? Out of the corner of your eye. This is how it works.
mm, mm.
absolutely. Did
Yeah.
you like when you were sort of building the Ong's hat thing, did you feel any kind of it's maybe it's a roundabout way of asking this question, but I feel like places have kind of a native spirit to them. Like
Oh yeah,
that place has it has a thing that it is, and you were
it
kind of
has a
building
thing.
on that. Did you feel any kind of resistance, or was it collaborative? Like, how did you
Mm.
feel like kind of
It
working with
seemed
this
to be
place?
very collaborative.
Yeah,
It seemed to like enjoy the attention
yeah,
because they
Mm.
kind of like took this thing that was a local folklore and put it on the internet, which like made it because it got a lot of attention. It made it the subject of attention all over the world. I mean,
yeah,
literally, I've had people literally people from all over the world have contacted me, and like I've been on radio in Europe and all this stuff. So it's been around for 30. This project's been going on for 30 years.
Mhm.
So this thing has been living for 30 years, and it just seems to get stronger every year.
yeah. Huh. What?
What
So,
are what are some of the stranger manifestations of it that you've heard?
I was gonna ask that. Yeah.
um, well, I've heard a couple of people like trying to start a cult around it, and I don't put up with that. I
Yeah.
stomp that out as fast as I see it.
Hmm.
Um, so that's weird. Like that makes me feel weird.
Yeah, that is pretty weird, no
Yeah.
doubt.
And then when you come up when you find those people doing that and you're like, no, 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 then you're the enemy all of a
Right.
sudden. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I try to play with that. In the CD-ROM that I put out in '99, I wrote a whole chapter about these, fictional people called what did I call them? I can't even remember. It was something like the new Angshat travelers, blah blah blah, and like, and they painted me as the bad guy. Of course, they called me the Colonel Kurtz of the Angshat movement
That's amazing.
because he won't let us do anything. It's like, no, it's not that. Not going to let you do a cult though. Um, some of the stranger things. Well, I mean, a good example is, I mean, I love the fact that like to this day, there are groups of kids that go out there in the forest in Angshat looking for the remnants of the ashram. I
Oh
fucking
yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Right?
I think
As a
the street sign's always gone too. I go out
Oh
there
yeah, people
once or
keep
twice a
stealing the street
year.
sign. Yeah.
So I drive by like Ong's Hat Road, I think it is. There's a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
bar there that's
Hmm.
now been painted. They used to have like this weird mural on it, and now it's been
Yeah.
painted. But yeah, I go there and half the time there's a street sign and half the time there's not.
Yeah, because
And
people keep
that's
stealing
great.
it. So
Yeah, it's awesome.
is that bar open again?
I was there maybe a month ago and I drove by and it looked pretty dead. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I talked to them years ago and sent them Xerox copies of the catalog.
Cool.
And because they told me like there's like these kids keep coming in here and they're looking for the like, and I'm like, they're like, what should I do? I'm like, do you want to like lean into it a little bit? And the guy's like, yeah, sure. I'm like, put some pictures on the wall, black and white, that look like scientists. And if they ask you, tell them this is the building that used to be the Ong's Hat Rod and Gun Club.
Yeah.
This is where the scientists came that built the thing. It's like just lean into it. And they did. They're really cool. They're really nice people. It was like Anastasia or something. It was the
Yeah.
Anatoly. I can't remember. The cafe had a weird name.
Yeah.
But
I no, I have some friends who some years ago had gone out there and they went to that bar and they were
everybody
asking
did.
about Ong Sat and some
Exactly.
locals like brought them out there. It's amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Because
that's
there's
awesome.
nothing else out there.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
they wind up at this wound up at this bar, and they're like, "Is this the Hogs Hat Rod and Gun Club? Is this where the ashram was?" Like, and so like told the owners, I'm like, just play with it, man. Just lean into it. Like,
Yeah,
you're
totally.
getting business out of it. Why not?
Yeah, yeah.
And then they were cool. They were like game. They were like, "Yeah, sure, we'll do that." So I sent them a big stack of the catalogs, Xerox copies of the catalogs, and I said, just hand them this, send them on their way.
That's awesome. Nice. So
So yeah, it
cool.
was like mostly like kids from New York and people from all over. Like there was we did a Audible original last year, year before, I think,
Hmm.
and they actually went out there. The the people who did the Audible original, they went out to Ong's and talked to people, and they
Oh,
wanted to go to
cool.
the cafe, but the cafe was closed, so
Ah,
I guess it went out of business. That's too bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. It's so
But yeah, they
crazy.
just wandered around and talked to people. Have you heard of this thing about Like scientists living out here? And people are like, oh, I've heard something about that. Of course they have,
Yeah.
even if they haven't.
So I guess I'm kind of curious in some of the like the pre-tech influences of the metafiction thing for you. I know that
Hmm.
you're a Kenneth Grant fan such as
Oh yeah.
us, but was there some other stuff that you'd like to talk about that kind of inspired you to get interested in that concept?
Well, yeah. So putting this together was a form of therapy because I've always been an artist that's been to a lot of different schools of art,
Mm,
and so when I started to conceive of this thing, I thought of it like I sometimes use the analogy of a Swiss Army knife.
mm,
I started to think like, how can I build a thing that I can use all these interests that I have? Like, I'm into photography, I'm into like eventually web design, I'm into coding, And I was trying to think of like, how can I tell a story? And so, as an object-oriented programmer, which dates me again, I sat down and like, can we build a framework? And then in that framework is modular stories that are, stories like in the agile programming school, you would call this a story, and then you would call the entire group of stories an epic.
mm,
And so the Young's Hat catalog is an epic. Within each one of the books, the description of the book is actually a story about that fits into the epic, but it's related to the book. So the books were chosen to highlight what we wanted to say and how we wanted to say it. And then we basically wrote a short story about the that included the book or the contents of the book somehow, right? And in places where there were gaps, we made up books, right? What I've been hoping for, and I think has happened a few times, is I want people to tell me that some of the books we made up are real. Now, this has happened to me once. I can't confirm it, but somebody from Indonesia contacted me and told me one of the books that is in the catalog, which I know is fictional, is actually they've seen it on the shelf of their Swami in Indonesia. And I'm like, pictures, pictures, or I don't believe you.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give me some pictures. And I never got the pictures. But, people have made that claim like, oh, I've seen that book before. And again, that's probably some Mandela effect,
Mm,
right?
Yeah.
Going on. But even at that, so what? Cool. I'm happy with that. As an artist, I'm happy with that. Can I make people think they saw things? It's like
Yeah.
being a stage magician.
mhm,
So, um, yeah, that's that part of it is interesting, but just as an artist, I've always been, like I said, like I started back in college days. I've always had this interest in like building a story as a storyteller that didn't have to just sit in one pile of media. So it's not just a book,
mhm,
it's not just a TV show or whatever. It's not just a web page. It's not just an audio piece. It's all of those things. So the narrative keeps going. And so
Mm.
you look at the first attempt at it, there was the catalog. And in the catalog, there's one item in the catalog, which is the Ong's Hat brochure, which was a fictional piece, which Peter wrote as a real piece and published in a sci-fi magazine and
mhm,
said, I don't know where this came from. I found it.
mhm. Yeah.
So that was the beginning. It's like that's the model. It's like come up with a story. The story is a framework. So come up with a place to hang things, hang stories
Mm.
that fit into the larger narrative. And then each one of those things as a story can be expanded upon. So, like, here's another example. People kept telling me that they knew people from the Angst ashram. And I mean, people literally were telling me this. Now, this is going to get funny. I I knew the people that did the Montauk project, right?
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
And and they Peter, the guy who runs it all that,
Yeah.
gave my phone number to Al Bielek, which I'm sure you know that name, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Al Bielek called me up at my office. I had a home office at the time because I was running a company. And he's like, "This is Al Bielek." I'm like, "Oh." So I like closed my office door, put the do not disturb sign up, put him on speakerphone, put my feet on the table, like, "Okay, Al, what's up?" Like, "Well, I wanted to tell you, I knew the people at Ong's Hat." I'm like, "Fuck yeah, tell me, tell me." And he told me this whole story,
Yeah.
like about like
Oh
how he
man.
knew them.
That's
And
amazing.
and and you knew of Al Bielek, he probably believed it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like people used to call him a liar. I don't think he was a liar. I think
Mm.
he really believed what he was saying. I think
Yeah,
he really thought he was in the Philadelphia experiment.
Right.
he's a legend. Yeah.
Were
Yeah, he's
there
a legend.
did he have some insights about the inhabitants of Ong's Hat
He
that you were like,
did. He
that's
did.
pretty interesting,
He
actually?
did. Because he was a great raconteur, among other things,
Uh,
Huh.
a great fantasist.
Yeah.
I don't think he knew it though. And I had a couple of friends. I recorded it, by the way, and I had a couple of friends who I did improv with, and we studied together. And I said, "I'm going to do something. I'm gonna." And back then, this was like there was no Zoom or anything. I had what was called a scutch box, which you used to use to record the prompts in a interactive voice response system, like a voicemail system.
mhm.
Yeah.
You would go, "Oh, and press two." Like there was like this thing that like allowed you to record to digital because this was ancient days. This was 99, something like that. Um, and I called them and I hooked it up so could record the call. I did a bridge conference. I said, "You guys know the Ong's Hat material. So I'm gonna call you, and you are you are two people that grew up as kids at the Ong's Hat ashram. That's all you get. That's all I'm telling you. I'm a journalist because that's the role I play in this story. And I'm going to interview you. Ready? Go." And we did it. We interviewed it, recorded it. And during that recording, they told a bunch of stuff that I gleaned from talking to Al. Like there was a tower, like radio waves, and like, because that would be Al. He was a tube type guy. He was not very solid state at all. And and one of the guys did not read the material well enough. So he made a mistake, but being that we all studied Del Close method, we leaned into that mistake.
Hmm.
And so a whole new chapter of Ong's Hat is in the book. It has to do with the meditation egg, the key egg, and you see me holding one up because I eventually had to build one. But that all came from a mistake
Nice.
that somebody
Yeah.
made because they were like, when I was holding the egg, and then all of a sudden we jumped in real quick, like, wait, holding the egg? The thing's big enough to climb in. How are you holding it? Oh, well, and then he like made up a story on the spot, right?
Yeah.
He realized he'd fucked up, but like we did the Delclose method, we leaned into the mistake and we came up with a new branch of the story.
Mhm.
So that's how the whole project went all the time. It was always like bumbling along until you hit something chaotic, something
Hmm.
cool would come out of the chaos, and then just integrate it.
Mhm.
Huh. Yeah, it's
So
like a lichen or something. Like the way
yeah,
it
yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah, yeah,
snakes
yeah,
out.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And you had radio stuff initially in there too with the number stations as well, right? Like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
kind of an
yeah, yeah.
amazing Montauk connection.
Yeah. Well, Al told me there was a number station running out of Ong's Hat, so I had to go with that.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
he was like spinning it hard, man. I wish I still had the recording, but the tape degraded over years.
Damn. Yeah.
but he
I
was
mean,
like
that's
he was in fine form that day.
yeah, that's amazing though. I mean, that's an amazing connection to have because I had thought about the Montauk Project and those books. I
Yeah.
didn't really know how to ask you about it. I didn't know there was a
Well,
connection,
I
but
let
that's
them publish a version of the Young's Hat book for a while, and then I
Right.
kind of took it back.
What
yeah.
is that like
Peter
Peter Moon, right?
Moon, yeah,
Mm.
Yeah, I've got that
yeah.
one somewhere. Yeah, it's cool. It's
It's definitely weird.
yeah,
um, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I got nothing bad to say about Peter. I'm just saying, like, that's not my thing. And
right.
I let them publish it for a while, and then I took it back, and I'm like, and he was like, kind of butthurt, but I was like, well, dude, it's like not you. It's just like I don't want to be associated with the Montauk Project,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah. That
And
makes, I mean, that
I
thing
think
is
they kind of
so,
butthurt him,
yeah.
but oh well.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. You could have like been absorbed into it a little too much or something because
It seems
that
to do
thing's got
that.
some lore too. Yeah.
The whole
Yeah, yeah.
Philadelphia experiment thing seems to just absorb anything that touches it. So it's probably good
True.
to,
Well, that was Al, man. I mean,
yeah,
Al and Preston, who
yeah,
I've never talked to Preston before, but I talked to Al several times, and like anything Al touched or read or like interfaced with it and at any level became part of his story eventually. I
yeah,
watched it happen a few times. Like I'd tell him about a book, and then he'd read the book and he'd tell me he really liked the book. And then he'd tell me like this book reminds me of something. And then like within weeks he was telling me this happened to me. Oh, this
yeah.
is about me. I'm like, okay.
That's awesome.
This is exactly how you put yourself into the Philadelphia experiment, dude. You saw the movie and then you remembered.
Yeah.
This all happened to
It's
me.
crazy. And that's such a foundational kind of approach to how people in the UFO field are kind of doing things today.
Mm,
Absolutely.
Like,
mm,
and it in some ways it's kind of I don't know if I'd call Bielek an artist, but I get he kind of is, and
I
I
think he
guess
was
there's
an unconscious artist. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
mm,
Yeah. Like I said, I don't think he knew he was such a good fantasist. You
yeah.
know who he reminds me of? The guy who did the Shaver Mysteries.
mhm,
Well, he was also literally an artist, but the
mhm.
mysteries
Well, yeah,
themselves, yeah,
but he literally thought that the story he
right.
was telling was real,
Right.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. No, he's an interesting case of liminality for sure. Because there, toward
Yeah.
the end, there was such like the rock paint, like there was a degree of sort of self mythologizing, but the way it started was certainly more Al Bielek like. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
And the thing you find out, like as I found out, is when you start playing with this stuff, it things start appearing
Oh,
and
yeah.
growing out of it. You're like, like I had no idea like when I sat down and started doing this that like John Tukey was telling stories in the 50s
mhm.
about Ong's hat and weird science and like I had no idea, but there it was.
Huh.
A Princeton mathematician like talking about this like because he was retired at the time and he's like it's published. I think it's on the bottom of the it's linked on the bottom of the Ong's hat Wikipedia page, I believe. I don't
Hmm.
know because I don't maintain that page, but I think I saw it there once. Might
Huh.
still be there. Anyway, yeah, I think Al was one of those unconscious artists that I just didn't know. Like I knew people, I've met people that knew Jack Smith. You know Jack Smith, the filmmaker?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They said that Jack, was probably certifiably insane, but that out of that insanity came brilliant art. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
ever seen his films before, but they look like motion paintings.
Mhm.
Hmm.
They're
Mhm.
just beautiful, you know. And he was a nut, you know. If he would rant and rave and yell at people and throw things at them, and like he was a certifiable nut. We just don't have enough of those
Yeah.
people anymore.
That's what it takes to get to these places sometimes. It takes somebody who's willing to go to those places, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And with no intention of coming back.
Yeah.
That's what it
Mm,
takes.
right.
You can't
Right.
like stick your toe in
Yeah.
and
That's true.
you have to
Yeah.
commit to the bit.
Yeah.
So I guess that being said, I'm curious what you think the potential is or the future of this kind of art creation is like in the current landscape of the internet as it exists now.
Well, I mean, the good news is in I concluded the Young's Hat project officially in 2001 because I was sick of the trolling and the bad behavior. Um, but it's carried on since then. I mean, I've done interviews and I don't think I've created. No, I did create one piece after that, but I've added some things here and there. Um, but mostly I've left it alone. And on its own, it's snowballed and done quite well. Doesn't need my help. Um, the the thing that happened was like in 2001, ARG became a thing,
Hmm.
alternate reality gaming, and using the same model, just not as weird as my stuff because I tend to be weird. Um, they started using it the format for launching video games and movies and all kinds of things, and so that became a commercial endeavor for a while.
Hmm.
I've even been contacted to create ARGs for hire.
Hmm.
And I've helped a couple of friends that started out in the early days of doing grassroots ARGs that were non-commercial, that were offered contracts by film studios and things like that. And they called me in to be a consultant for them. And I did it a few times. Um, and then I got kind of sickened by the fact that this whole thing was never allowed to become what I intended it to become, which is an art form. It
Yeah.
eventually, like, immediately got co-opted and
Yeah,
commercialized.
I was gonna say that's what happens, right? Everything gets
Exactly.
co-opted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I like hands off, and then I was like, I noticed that like that fell out of it wasn't chic anymore, thankfully. And people forgot about it, thankfully. And now what's happened is it's come back around on the grassroots level again. I get contacted weekly by people in their 20s who want to create an ARG.
Hmm.
And so if you look on Reddit, there's all kinds of people talking about it and doing it, non-commercial stuff, grassroots stuff. That's what I intended. That's what I wanted. That's what I support. And so that's nice that that happened, that it got commercial and it got overused, but that's good because in a way, then it the commercial interests then go away and go on to the next thing that they can rape. And then the art form can like fester, you know,
Yeah.
and say, I'm going to come back to life differently this time, and so I'm happy about that.
Mm,
I'm happy about that, that people are still doing it, still doing it.
right.
Yeah.
And it, like, I don't know if this is opening up a can of worms or not, but doesn't it kind of feel like our
All right, we're going to head over to patreon.com/consensusunreality for the second half of this interview. Don't miss out on that. There's some very prophetic thoughts in there. Also, check out Joseph's website at josephmatheny.com. That's JOSEPHMATHENY.com for all of Joseph's works. Patreon.com/consensusunreality for just $5 a month. It's the best way to support the show. Thanks for listening, as always.